Hi everybody, Chris Titley here and welcome to Scoreboard.
This episode is powered by Swyftx, Australia's top-rated crypto exchange and proudly homegrown, just like many of the athletes and business leaders we feature on Scoreboard.
Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and on today's episode of Scoreboard, the podcast, I'm joined by Luke Stedman. Luke, thank you so much for being part of this series.
Chris, thank you for having me.
Mate, we're sitting here on Friday, the 22nd of August. How's your week been?
It's been wet. We've had so much rain here in Byron Bay, where I'm located. So it's been a wet week, but today the sun is out, so it is very well received, and you can feel the energy change. This morning I did a couple of coaching sessions with some of my students, and everyone just came with a much higher energy, lifted energy, I would say. Very excited to see the sun.
Mate, excellent. And do you still run all the coaching classes when it is miserable, windy, cold, raining, or do you bin them?
No, we run. A lot of my students are really dedicated, really focused, all different ages, and we still commit to surfing in the slot because a lot of the time that's when you get these breakthroughs. It doesn't necessarily surfing perfect waves is quite easy in the sense of once you get to the feet, you got this canvas you can use. You do surf really well, but it's being able to surf in the conditions that aren't A grade that is a challenge, and that's generally where we can see holes in the game. We can see areas we can improve in, and so they are really helpful. A bit more challenging to put a wetsuit on in the rain,
Yep.
especially if it's wet. But when we're in the water, we have a good time.
Luke, you are my first surfer per se, surfing person on Scoreboard, so well done and congratulations. I'm curious to know about your life with surfing, your relationship with it, and when it all began.
Yeah, so I was born into surfing, Chris. My dad was a surfboard manufacturer. He made still does make Shane surfboards at the ripe old age of he's 84 now. So I was born into fiberglass, foam, surf, and also weather and surf reports. He was a consistent contributor to 2WS, 2SM, where we do the surf reports. So I'd be up in the morning with him, traveling from location to location, understanding what the waves are doing. So I really got a good understanding of how the ocean works, how surfers live a daily lifestyle, and very fortunate to have that from the word go.
And Luke, sitting here in 2025, there's a lot more advanced technology and there's a lot more different things in life. Do you reckon the surf life is still the same or is it a little bit different?
As far as technology with equipment, it's got a lot better, and progression in that area or people allowing to be able to progress due to equipment changes is a definite factor, and that's a positive, and that's great. But I still feel like the daily regime of a surfer is still pretty consistent. Up early, generally the waves are better in the morning. Travel to the locations. Obviously, with things like Surfline, with utilities like Surfline, it's a lot easier to check surf, so there's less having to go from beach to beach. I can see a location there, looks great, I'm going to head to there. So from a time perspective, it's become a lot easier, a lot more convenient. Also, it has its pros and cons. Generally, everyone knows when the waves are good, and everyone can see where the waves are good at, so the crowd is a factor. So you have to be a little bit more savvy with your selection and understand local conditions, and so that definitely factors in. But I'd say generally the surfer's daily lifestyle generally starts with the surf. No matter if it's good or bad, you still feel better after a surf. So I'm confident in saying that we're staying on track with what it's been for hundreds of years.
And taking yourself back to Luke as a child and getting out in the surf and catching your first wave and getting out, as you said, feeling good after the memories are very, very strong. Do you want to talk about when you realised that you were actually pretty good?
Sure. So my dad was pushing me into waves from very early on, starting on a foamy. just coming in from a surf with the most horrific rash on my belly. That's one of my first memories of surfing, and I was just like, this isn't that fun, Dad. Like, I am hurting right now. My stomach is red raw just from surfing these old, sort of polystyrene foam boards. Fortunately, now they're so much better. But they were my earliest memories, and then sort of slowly transitioning into like fiberglass boards, even ride body boards. I just had like just the most funnest childhood memories of being in the ocean. Didn't have to, wasn't necessarily all about how well I was surfing or how well I could surf. It was more just about the fun. So my experience of surfing was really enjoyable, and I'm super grateful for my dad for allowing me to transition from equipment to equipment. And then I didn't really. All my friends surfed, and they were all really competitive, which was great for me as well. So I sort of tagged on with sort of on their coattails. I wasn't very competitive as a young grommet, and also I didn't really feel like that I had the natural talent that they did. That's my natural talent was more my ability to commit and focus and really put 100% into to getting better. And that sort of started to shine through in my sort of later teens. But surfing for me was purely fun up until I was leaving high school, and then I sort of realized that I had a talent, and I had some local sponsors. I started writing for Billabong. I think was my first sponsorship, and then later joined Quicksilver team when I was 18. And yeah, so when I left school, that's when I sort of really started to feel like I could maybe make a bit of a dent in the pro surfing scene.
When you were before that, maybe your mid teenage years, did you think like there was some? Obviously, you talked about the competitive nature of some of your mates. Did you think that they were sort of a bit, over the like you were going? You always had this deep belief. You're like, oh, it's fun, but I could probably beat these guys, or there's nothing in there.
No, no. Actually, I was always of the thought that these guys are so much better than me. I wonder if I'll ever be able to beat them. I didn't feel like I had like a really high confidence level. That was probably one of the areas that I had to work on most when I started competing more seriously. And I can get into that later. Some of the things that I did that helped me through that journey. But I actually didn't like competing when I was young. I felt really nervous and tense. I didn't enjoy the experience of being around a big group of people that with lots of talent as well. I felt a little bit. I felt it overshadowed me, and I wasn't comfortable there. And they're just sort of one of the things of being out of your comfort zone. And I think that my dad especially was more excited for me to be around a little bit more to get used to it, just because it's just a regular part of life is being in an environment that you're not feeling 100% comfortable in, and then being able to survive and then adapt and then enjoy that experience. I think that was one that my dad was excited for me to obtain those skills to be able to do that. So to answer your question, I didn't feel like I could beat these guys, but I think it happened by accident. It was like one heat where you actually, dealing with the ocean too, is you're dealing with Mother Nature. It's unpredictable. You can't control it. So you have to be able to, you know, factor in all these variables and these percentages, and then sort of go with like the best percentage of like where the waves are breaking, and hopefully, and then getting a couple of waves that allow you to get some scores. So they're pretty unreliable. And then sometimes there's a bit of good luck that comes with that, and then you get a win, and then all of a sudden the confidence goes up. So it's like with life, is you get these little wins and they compound, and you can bank them, and then confidence comes from past success. So you get a little bit of a win here and there, and then you're like, oh, maybe I can do this. So that was a really fun part of, I think, with surfing. It allowed you to get those experiences, because Mother Nature sometimes just would throw that person who generally was thought to win a curveball and they didn't get any waves, and then you beat someone with real skill. It's like, wow, that was fun.
Yeah, no, there's a bit of a deep belief theme there in some of the guests around the natural talent and fun levels, etc. But there's a grey area, I suppose, when you're in your teenage years, that if you do things that like events, etc., and you just don't like it, there's a chance you give up the sport. Did you ever think, oh, I don't like this event? I came 14th or something, and it's just too hard, too many egos.
I never was deterred to the point where I didn't want to come back to an event, because I always had so much fun just with outside of the heat as well, just with all my friends. And, you know, being on the beach, watching people surf, going for free surfs around the comp site, cultivating friendships, meeting people from outside of your area. And then it was always the time out of the contest when you're going, say someone would come up from the South Coast to compete in Sydney, and then you'd meet that person, cultivate this friendship, and then you'd go down the South Coast and then see this person at their local beach, and it'll be, hey, how are you? Like, and you get to surf with them, you get the inside knowledge, and then you've got this, like, you're creating this like network of friendships around your around areas that you wouldn't normally go to. And then, of course, anyone's going to tell you that having a network of friendships and relationships is one of the most important things of life. And that was the start of recognizing or identifying that, oh, I can build this network outside of my current zone, which actually is really helpful to me, not so much just for a surfing ability, but understanding like the local landscape of that area where they're at, and then knowing where to go for the best food, for the best stay, the best spots, and surf the best waves. And as that grows and you grow later on in life, it's like then it becomes like, oh, you can actually factor in like bigger things. And so that was a start, and I think I recognized that pretty early, and that was good.
Connection is so important when it comes to sport. I'm curious to know, when you're out there and you've just met someone for the first time and you're surfing with them, what do you chat about?
In a heat, I wasn't very talkative in a heat. I generally had to be really on my game, super focused and dialed in. And I think that came from not having this amazing skill level early in. I had to like be really clever with my tactical game, and that's sort of what helped me get through heats. But through that time, generally after the heat, or if you progress with that person, then then there's this like, oh, we got through 3 heats together. Hey, how you doing? Like, that was fun, wasn't it? So that's what sort of really helped with the friendship factor. But then if it's just in the water, you're meeting someone for the first time, it's like, hey, how you, like, I would always enjoy a conversation. I felt like it was a way to help me not only like selfishly catch more waves, because if you befriend someone, then they're a lot more likely to be like, oh, here's a good one, go for it. Like, if you start off on a bad note, then that person, like, surfing's an aggressive sport. It's one-on-one, like, you're out there for number one, like, I'm getting waves, get out of my way, and I want the best waves. And the better locations you go to, the more heavy the lineup would be. So again, tactically understanding what the lineup feels like and looks like, and then being able to work in a strategy to help you catch waves is super helpful, whether it's competing or whether it's just turning up to a really good surf location for the first time. So, for example, if you go to Hawaii, or if you go to somewhere that is like very heavily localized, there's a really important way to navigate that lineup that comes with understanding what should be done at what time.
Strategy as well. I'm also curious to know that you do 3 heats with someone and you say, oh, wow. And then you might compete with them again and you're like, no, this we're getting our competitive edge on now. Is that sometimes happens as well?
Oh, for sure. But the joy of like, and it would happen from the lowest ranks to the highest ranks. Like, there'd be a couple of times I remember, for example, it was a really big event in Hawaii at a place called Haleiwa, and it was one of the last stops on tour for qualifying. And there was at the time where there was 4-man heats, so top two go through. So there'd be 30-minute heat, four people in a heat, top two progress. And I had this guy called Sonny Garcia, this really, like, I used to watch Sonny compete in videos when I was growing up. He's a world champion, big, massive Hawaiian, super intimidating, really powerful surfer. And he just owned this wave. It was like his one event that he would be earmarked to win. And I just knew if I just sat right next to him and didn't like, I didn't try and out paddle him for waves, because I knew I wouldn't be able to do it. But if I sat right next to him and just went the wave after him, I would get a really good shot at getting a score I needed to progress. And I did that for 3 heats, and we just kept going through the same. And I remember him just looking at me one day. This is early on in my career, and he's just looked at me. He's like, are you right? Just I know what you're doing. You're just pigtailing off me, but it's working, and you're not getting in my way. So keep doing it. And that was our start of our sort of friendship. And because I was a lot smaller, he's this massive Hawaiian. I didn't want to get into his way, and it worked. And we became friends after that. And when I qualified, we surfed many heats on tour together. He was still very competitive, and he respected that, and I respected him, and we get along fine.
That's awesome. I'm curious to know about life on tour as a surfer. It's the goal that people want to get to, but then it's pretty cutthroat. In terms of what life was like as having a sponsor and then traveling, surfing, and in competitions, how would you describe it?
It's the best time on earth. It was. I look back on the tour, and I just really appreciate and super grateful for the opportunity that I had to be on tour. I competed for a long time. I was competing from my seriously on the QS since I was about 22 years old, and then I hung up my boots when I was 35 after spending 7 years on the World Championship Tour. So I had a lot of good years, and they were really, really fun. I worked really hard, especially in the later years, and I was fortunate enough to have great support from sponsors. And it was in a time too that um, it was easy to get sponsorship, and everything was thriving. So it was quite lucrative as well, and there was a lot larger group of people that could make a living surfing. When now it's very challenging. There's not as much money, nowhere near as much, and you have to work in different ways to cultivate, good sponsorship and relationship with people that are willing to pay you. So I believe I had the best years on tour in terms of timing, from when pro surfing started until till now, but it was incredibly enjoyable. Surfing for a living, catching waves, riding waves for a living, getting paid for it. I do not think there's a better job.
Did you think at the time you're getting money, the combination of money and surfing, and like that it will last forever, and just ride it? Excuse the pun, ride it for as long as possible. Was that the thinking?
It was it. Yes, at that time, you are because it was the only thing I knew too. It was like I was naive to essentially how the real world worked, or world outside of competitive surfing. And so when I decided to leave at 35, I was quite old, and I don't have a university degree, or I don't really have it. I knew how to ride waves. I knew how to train. I knew how to compete, but I didn't. And I thought I understood business. And that's when I got the rudest shock of my life. I started a clothing label after I finished the tour, and that was just 6 or 7 years of like really hard work. And um, I don't regret starting a clothing label, but I lost a lot of money. It was really hard work, super challenging. But that 6 or 7 years, that was my reintroduction to business, and to how to manage multifaceted areas of things that you don't have control over. A lot with businesses, there's just factors that you can't control, and that I would have to rely on those. And I found that really challenging, and that was my biggest hurdle after leaving the tour, was learning how to do business.
Did you use obviously some of the traits that you had during the pro surfing circuit to kind of get you through that period of time? And probably you mentioned about one of the biggest discrepancies being the control factor. Surfing's an individual sport. It's, broadly speaking, it's you against the wave and the score and the etc. And business can be like that. But then you said some things are out of your control. Running a business and the things that were out of your control, how much do they sort of compound, I suppose, for you to go, I'm not feeling the love here?
Yeah, that was my the not having control of so many aspects. So, for example, I didn't have control of when people would pay me. I didn't have control of like shipping and making sure stock would arrive on time. I didn't have control of if, say, for example, a print didn't go on the t-shirt in the correct location, and then they would get shipped to a store and then they didn't want it because it was different color. Like, there was so many different variations and variables of control that I didn't have, that I decided that wasn't the line of work that I wanted to be in. And during that time, towards the end of my clothing label, a friend of mine just asked me if I would do a coaching lesson with their with their kid. And I was living in America at the time because California was our biggest distribution of clothing. So I wanted to be there on the ground level to try and drive it. I was putting in 100% and making sure I did give it a good crack. But then when I took someone surfing, it just reignited my passion that I had for surfing. And because I had such a large competitive experience, and because I put so much time into progression, I really loved just helping someone understand what tools they could use to help them get to their next level. And the joy that it brought them brought me so much satisfaction and fulfillment that I literally came in from this one session and I was like, I am done. I know what I need to be doing. And then within 3 months, I had a really like solid business of large clientele of students. And that's where Blackball, the current company that I'm working on now, that's where that is sort of stemmed from. And I haven't looked back.
Wow. Isn't that good that the journey of life, I mean, I'm not going to say that the 6 years of fashion label were good, but the learnings from it and the learnings from your surfing into the values-based approach now of like, I can control, firstly, I can't control the waves, obviously, but I can control, and there's prosperity. Like, it's an underlying value of a lot of people's, like, you're seeing prosperity, you're seeing people grow, and it gives you happiness. Like, that's a good thing. And once you connected back into the water physically, was there also a connection there? You're like, this is where I belong?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Like all the things you just mentioned, plus that connectivity with the ocean. I wasn't spending a lot of time in the ocean because I was working so much. And that's the other thing with running a business. It's like, it's not a 9 to 5. It's like I'm dealing with someone in China and it's the time zone is completely different. It's a different day. I'm dealing with someone in Australia. Time zone day is completely different. So the work doesn't stop. The emails are rolling in at the weirdest hours. And it's like really like you have to be onto it. So having a little bit more like control over the times and understanding when I was going to coach, they were the times I could put 100% energy into that. And I was also connecting with the student a lot better. I was connecting with the environment so much better because when I was done, I was done. And I had time to rest and recuperate. And I felt just like so much more rejuvenation. And I was just a much better human all round when I was in the water, whether it be just free surfing or whether it be like coaching. I'm a better person.
What are some of the tips that you give to your students? And I'm not necessarily asking for specific surfing tips, but I'm more about life and about mindset and about achieving high performance in your own world.
Sure. So with our methodology, the Blackboard methodology is exactly that. Is we use surfing as a vehicle that we use to implement specific strategies or blueprints on how to achieve goals that can be used in your everyday life. So a big part of our program is journal entries. So identifying the wins, understanding some of the things that we could be doing better tomorrow, and writing a roadmap on how we achieve that. If people, like, I do that with my business daily, and that's something that I've learned through. I didn't. So I'm going to change direction here a little bit.
Go
So
for it.
a bit of context of the story. I was doing the WQS, which is the tour to qualify for the World Championship League, the WSL as it's known now. I did that for 4 years, and I would always end up around the sort of like early 20s, 20th, 22, 23. you have to be in the top 16 to qualify at the time, and I wasn't quite getting there. And then I lost I lost a sponsor. Quicksilver said, "All right, that's it. You're done." And it was like this time where I was like, "Oh my gosh, my world is just ending. Um, I'm not going to qualify. I've lost my sponsor. I didn't know what to do. It was awful." And then that was the sort of kind of catalyst that gave me this. I just had to invest everything I had into being able to qualify, because I was being a little bit slack in a couple of areas, and I was still young. I was only 21, 22. No, actually at the time I was 24, 25. So I wasn't that young. I was like, I'm getting older now. I need to make this happen. So I invested in like this wonderful sports psychologist, Michael Martin, who was the head of the Australian Institute of Sport, teaching a lot of the Olympic team, um, uh, strategies, mental strategies, being able to get through hurdles, pain points that they were getting, and he would help them navigate those. And then he just had this passion for surfing. So he was gracious enough to help myself and a really good friend of mine, Jared Howes. We were both trying to qualify, and we leaned into this 100%. And one of the things he gave us, we started off doing, was just write 3 positive things from our day, one thing that we can do better tomorrow. And that was the start of our journaling, and that just then got that got a lot heavier in terms of what we could do and how we could do it better, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew. But it took me 1 year and I qualified, and I put it down to the everyone says like, oh, in sports it's 90% mental, 10%, or it's a lot more mental than it is actual technique. Everyone has the same amount of technique, but if they have the mental strength, they can achieve their goals. And I put it down to the mental strength that Michael Martin instilled into me, gave me the tools to qualify and reach my goals. So after identifying that that's what I needed, it's such a big part of my program, because it worked so well for me. So I know it can work well for others. And I just feel breeds confidence. Like, if you have confidence, then you're a lot more likely to achieve your goal than if you don't. And confidence comes from past success. So writing down like these wins that you have was really effective. So that's one of the things that we instill in the students today, and that's what helps them in later life or in their daily life or relationships or whatnot. So we do a lot of that, Chris.
Where does energy come into it in regards to confidence? Because I was chatting to someone the other day about the positive energy that you bring to other people, and it's contagious, and it stills. But obviously, having a win or some sort of win breeds confidence, which may breed energy. But at some point in time as well, like you're feeling flat, and you're feeling like you haven't had a great night's sleep, and things aren't going your way. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. How I would deal with that personally was, one is, rereading those diary entries is really powerful. So you might be feeling flat or not be feeling like you're at your peak performance, and then you just skip back, 2 months ago, and you read about this challenging day that you had and how you overcame it, the challenges, and how you had success. When you read that, you're like, oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I nailed that day. I had a really good win. And then you skip to a couple of other pages, and it'd be something totally different. And then you read about your day that you had, and the challenges and how you overcome them, and the wins that you had, and then you'd be like, that's right, I had that win. So that changes your energy. And then if you just do some simple things like breath work, really powerful motivational tool. Like, sometimes you just do not feel like training. I don't feel like going for a surf. I don't feel like coaching. I don't feel like training. And you just go through this whatever breathwork program that you have, and that just, it gets the ball rolling. It changes your energy, and it's a lot more likely to get up and then start doing some mobility drills or some sort of thing that's going to help carry you through to having a success at whatever it is you're going to dive into, whether it's competing, whether it's coaching, whether it's just going for a surf.
Are you a incremental improver, like a 1%? style person, or are you a bit faster than that in your head?
I love, I love, I love PBs, personal bests, and when any of my students come to train, we come or train or coach, or then they come for coaching. We have the mindset of today I'm going to have a PB, and it doesn't necessarily mean to be in the water surfing, doing your best surfing, but it may be in how you structure your uh, how we structured our coaching period for that day, or it may be around, how well you are feeling, or how much did you hydrate properly, or did you was your mindset, what did you do today that was the best in your mindset strategy, or was it your equipment, or is it just something in your personal life that you're really proud of? We really highlight those features. And if every day we're having a small PB, then that increment, and especially if you journal those, what you want, or what you did, then that just compounds, and that's super powerful. I, I think that is the most, I think that is one of the best ways to go about your day. And I feel like if you're constantly on that upward scale, then it's very hard to be upset with yourself, or it's very hard to say, "Oh, I'm not doing my best because I'm reaching a PB every day."
How detailed do you journal on a daily basis?
Uh, I I I can get really detailed, and sometimes I don't feel like journaling. I don't feel like picking up a pen and writing. I've got kids, I've got dinner, I've got bedtime, I've got all these other factors. But now I just know, if even if I just write down just what I did today, and what, even if it's just in point form, today I trained, stoked, didn't feel like it, win. I might just get really, because if I just see the word win, I'm like, I won. And for me, that's a great feeling. And it mightn't necessarily be about being so competitive, or it might be just like, today my wife was able to, I minded the kids, so my wife was able to go and train. So she feels better. Awesome. Life at home is good. There's just simple things like that. So it doesn't have to be detailed. I feel it just has to be, you just have to identify them.
And how does that correlate with maybe goals that you've written down? And on that topic, are you a big, hairy, audacious goal? Are you a long term? Are you a short term? Are you weekly? Are you monthly? How does that work?
Great question. I love you have to. I feel like you have to have a goal set, and like you got to be careful too that you're not moving the goalposts around as well. So
The goalposts.
goalposts, yeah, because if you set your goalposts and then you like start moving them around, it's like, oh, hang on a sec, that wasn't our original goal. It's all right to, when you get to that goal, you start going, okay, now I can move the goalposts, but we have to reach that goal first. So like you might have a goal of, hey, this year I want to qualify, or this year I want to make the team, the first grade team. It's a big goal. So that's my end goal. That happens at the end of the selection, comes at the end of the year. Okay. So now what's my roadmap look like to being able to to achieve that end goal? So there's a bit of a process goals. Like, that end goal isn't a process goal. So what's my process goals that are going to help me achieve that end goal? And that's really important, because then I can start writing down a plan and a strategy. And then I don't have to keep second guessing myself as well. Like, am I doing everything I can? Like, because I've spent a lot of time identifying those process goals, and they might change a little bit depending on the results I'm getting, but the end goal still stays the same. So I can look at my process goals and then be like, oh, this is really working. I'm getting huge wins here. This one here is sucking. I'm not, it's not working for me. I can't get there. I need to change this one. So then I can do that, and then hopefully I'll get a different result, which then in turn helps me I hopefully like achieving my end goal. And then as well, it's like I can look at like my daily diary entries, and if I'm getting the wins and I'm like, yes, I'm succeeding, this is good. So essentially, too, like your diary entries like this, you've got a graph, and it's like it's showing you whether you're on target or not. And if you're not, it's like, okay, cool, I need to make some changes. But if you don't have any evidence there that points out to how you're traveling, then it's very difficult to pinpoint the area that you could possibly change.
So there's a bit of accountability too. So, like for instance, if you say, "Oh yeah, I need to eat better and drink less alcohol and do this, etc.," but you don't journal it, you don't really know how you're tracking. Is that kind of where you're coming from?
100%. This leaves out the guesswork, and you can have a lot of it's you can a lot of the time be like, maybe I'm not doing this or maybe I'm not doing that. Well, if you've written it down, then it's clear to recognize, well, I'm not doing that, or yes, I am, but it's not working, so I need to change it.
Trust is also trust in yourself and the belief in the process is very interesting, and you've actually analysed that very very well. I asked one of the WNBL coaches recently about trusting your own process. Like you trust your own process as a coach, and then the team's finishing sixth every year or something. Is like, are you backing yourself that you know that they can win a title, or is it you need to change the process? But I think you've nailed it in terms of refining your own personal process that feels good for you, and I think that's difficult for some people.
Yes, it and as well, it's based on experiences as well. So if you're having a really beautiful experience, then it becomes you're more likely to lean in and really challenge yourself. So for me, I enjoy the experience of journaling, and it's not necessarily always writing. Like I got a lot of enjoyment into sort of mapping out my surf session. So I would draw. So I'm the worst drawer on earth, by the way. I'm full stick man, like I'm rubbish. But I would draw how I wanted to surf and then understand some of the mechanics that I would need to do specifically well to really achieve the perfect turn. And then that really helped me from a creative, because surfing, like any sport and any job, there's an element of creative control that you need to have, because if you don't, then you're just doing what someone else is doing. And you have to be willing to really get out of your comfort zone and do something that's unexpected. And because that becomes a bit of a wow factor, like, oh, that was unique. That caught my eye. There's a lot of people doing the same thing. How do I separate myself from that? That makes you more valuable as a sponsored surfer. That gives you more credibility as an athlete, because you're willing to step outside of that and do something that no one else is doing. And so that's that creative aspect. And again, it comes from like pen to pad, and identifying a couple of things you could do through that. So, but that's an experience moment. And that's why I try it with coaching. I really put a lot of emphasis in, not so much today we're gonna surf as hard and as fast and train as hard as fast as we can. It's not necessarily about that. It's about how can we create this experience that I'm going to leave my students saying, that was insane, haven't happened before, I can't wait to come back next week, with this underlying message of this was the goal for today. That needs to be just like, that Karate Kid, wax on, wax off, and he's waxing and he's waxing and he's waxing. He's like, you're not getting, I don't know how to fight. Like, you're just getting me to wax on, wax off. And he goes, throws a punch and he goes, wax on. And he just blocks the punch. And he's like, oh, that's awesome. So it's like this, especially with the Groms, you have to have this like underlying sort of hint of a technique, but it's all about fun, because otherwise they don't want to come back. And then as you get older, you can kind of be a little bit more direct with your messaging, but that's what I like to do.
Mate, absolutely. I remember my kids played Auskick, and I went down to watch a session early on, and there was nothing to do with footy. It was just like having a footy ball, and they were playing games like putting a ball in their head and putting it. I was like, oh, wow, they're not even playing footy. But I'm like, this is the fun. Then they want to come back. They're like, this is really cool. Nothing to do with footy. Just like fun with your mates and putting a ball in your head and playing, running around just hit my mic then, running around the circles and stuff like that.
It's so true. Like my kids do jiu-jitsu, and they're like, it's a very jiu-jitsu is very like connected sport. And it can be really like overwhelming and challenging for people who are first coming in, but they have all these names for all these different movements, and it's all fun. It's all play. They're only little, but they love it, and then they don't even realize that it's quite a high impact connective sport yet, because they're in the play zone still. And I was like, this is awesome. So I recognize that, and I try and incorporate that a lot into the surfing, and the kids love it.
Luke, I'm going to touch on a question that I ask all my guests, which is this scoreboard moment, which is a moment in your life which is very vivid, very clear, and from that moment things change. Sometimes it gets quite personal. So it's why I ask it as well, and it actually is a little bit of reflection. And we've been on reflection today around looking back at journals, etc. So I'm keen to know what your scoreboard moment is.
So Sydney 2000 Olympics, they shut down the city, and it was this the highest energy I've ever felt that I can remember, of this positive, fun, beautiful like space. And we went to the opening day of the Olympics in Sydney, which was awesome. And then I just like really wanted to be a part of something like that within my sort of sporting career. But I had to go away the following day. I had to go and compete over in Portugal. And I remember we were just watching on the computer at like the weirdest times, 3 a.m. We were jet lagged, and we'd be in Portugal, and we were watching Ian Thorpe just smoke people in the pool, and we'd be all up cheering collectively as this little group of people. And it was just this moment of like, oh, imagine breaking a world record. Like, imagine, I wanted to be in Sydney so badly, but I was away in Portugal, but it was a way for us to connect like all together as these people. We were there competing, and that just inspired us we just wanted to win so badly. We wanted to do the best. We wanted to compete for our country, and that really inspired us to as well, because surfing is such a personal sport. You're competing against yourself, so we really kind of connected with that. It's up, if it's meant to be, it's up to me sort of thing. You've got to. You're not competing in a team environment. So I just felt that in the Olympics, it was such a special moment. That was a big one.
That's awesome. Another question I ask is about one's favourite all-time sporting moment that doesn't include themselves, to get out of the comfort zone a little.
Yeah, sporting moment. Sporting moment.
Well, Thorpe's probably just nailed that one, and two questions in one.
Yeah, that was an epic one. I do love that. But I'm a big sports fan. Like, I get really emotional. Like, I loved just recently Volkanovski won back his world title. Like, I love him. I think he's such an inspiration, and he sends all the right messages. I love Adesanya as well. I think he was just such a character. And when those guys both came back from being, beaten to regain a title, it's very challenging. And they were under so much pressure, and they came away and they won. And for me, it's just like, I love that.
That's awesome. And Luke, we talked about sponsorship early on in your life and how that helped you to get going. And obviously, when it comes to podcasting, I'm very grateful for our supporters and our sponsors. And we've got two sponsors. One is Swyftx, which is Australia's most trusted cryptocurrency platform. They've got over 1.1 million users in Australia and New Zealand. As part of that sponsorship, we do a little segment called the Bucket List, which is a sporting event that you haven't attended thus far that you'd love to attend. As part of their new TVC campaign, Where Can Crypto Take You? Luke Stedman, I'm curious to know what your sporting bucket list event is.
Well, I would love to go to the UFC. I'm a big fan. Seeing the ones in America, especially the one in Vegas at the Sphere, that just looked incredible. So one day I will get to a USC. Living in Byron, there's there's not a lot of areas that will facilitate a viewing a USC location, but yeah, one day.
One day, maybe crypto could take you to the UFC now. And our second sponsor for the segment, Do You Budget, is PocketSmith. PocketSmith is the personal finance app for the household CFO, the one keeping the budget in check, paying the bills, and kicking big goals. Over 80,000 Aussies use PocketSmith to track spending, their net worth, and plan ahead. And as part of their partnership, we ask Luke Stedman, do you budget?
100%. That was the one thing I learned from working in fashion, was knowing how to do a spreadsheet. Now I can bang them out and eat them for breakfast. So I'm a huge budgeter, and my wife gets quite annoyed with me because I get really, really granular. But it keeps us safe financially.
Absolutely. I do my favorite thing is the little categorizations of spending, like the default things. So you can bucket into entertainment, or you bucket into schools or kids, etc. But you can narrow it down, and you're like, no, this is, Chris, you're spending too much on the old coffee. So make a change, and granular is the key word. Luke, one final question for you. Piece of advice that you can give maybe a 15-year-old at the moment who wants to become a professional surfer or a professional athlete or a high performer in sport. What are you telling them?
Just one piece of advice, Chris?
You can go two if you want, but one's good, yeah.
No. I would say always try and do things your competitors are not. So generally what that does is, if you're competing as a surfer, everyone's surfing, everyone's training physically, everyone's doing a lot of things, working with their shapers, but what are they not doing? And what is something that you could get an edge over them? And then really taking that home and knowing that you've done something more than your competitors, incredibly powerful.
Luke Stedman, thank you so much for being on Scoreboard, the podcast today, to share your journeys, your values, the ups and downs of life, the ups and downs of professional surfing, and where you're at now in terms of your school and your program in Blackball. Thank you so much for being part of it. I look forward to following your progress and following Blackball and your progress, and look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. Appreciate being on your show. Had a ball.